Hi, this is Kevin Currie-Knight. It's 2014 Banned Books Week, and in celebration of that, I'd like to read a passage from one of my favorite banned books. It's James Baldwin's book, Another Country. Baldwin was a middle 20th century writer, and Another Country, as well as some of his other books, contains themes of interracial friendships, interracial romantic relationships, bisexual and homosexual relationships, which is probably why the book has been banned in several areas in the United States and also in Australia. From 1963 to 1966, the book was banned in the entire country of Australia. It was banned in 1963 in New Orleans, Louisiana public libraries, and in 1964, the Literary Commission in the state of Georgia decided the book was offensive, and rather than try to outright ban the book, what it did allegedly, or apparently according to documents, is to use some of its, pressure tactics to pressure the publisher into not carrying the book as much in the state of Georgia. So whether it was carried at all, I'm not sure, but the publisher made sure not to put too many copies in the state of Georgia. So here's the excerpt that I would like to read. The trouble with a secret life is that it's very frequently a secret from the person who lives it, and not at all a secret from the person who he encounters. He encounters because he must encounter those people who see the secrecy before they see anything else, and who drag these secrets out of him, sometimes with the intention of using them against him, sometimes with a more benevolent intent. But whatever the intent, the moment is awful, and the accumulating revelation is an unspeakable anguish. The aim of the dreamer, after all, is merely to go on dreaming, and not to be molested by the world. His dreams are his protection against the world. But the aims of life are antithetical to those of the dreamer, and the teeth of the world are sharp. How could Eric have known that his fantasies, however unreadable they were for him, were inscribed in every one of his gestures, were betrayed in every inflection of his voice, and lived in his eyes with all the brilliance and beauty and terror of desire? He'd always been a heavy, healthy boy. He played like other children and fought as they did, and made friends and enemies and secret pacts and grandiose plans, and yet none of his playmates, after all, had ever sat with Henry in the furnace room, or ever kissed Henry on his salty face. They did not, weighed down with discarded hats, gowns, bags, sashes, earrings, capes, and necklaces, turn themselves into make-believe characters after everyone in their house was asleep. Nor could they possibly, at their most extended, have conceived of the people he, in the privacy of night, became, his mother's friends, or his mother as he conceived her to have been when she was young, his mother's friends as his mother was now. The heroines and heroes of the novels he read and the movies he saw were the people he simply put together out of his fantasies and the available rags. No doubt, at school, the boy with whom he was wrestling failed to feel the curious stabs of terror and pleasure that Eric felt as they grappled with each other, as one boy pinned the other to the ground. And if Eric saw the girls at all, he saw mainly their clothes and their hair. They were not for him, as they were for other boys, creatures in a hierarchy to be adored or feared or despised. None of them looked on each other as he looked on all of them. His dreams were different, subtly and cruelly and criminally different. This was not yet known, but it was felt. He was menaced in a way that they were not, and it was perhaps this sense of the instinct which compels people to move away from the doomed which accounts for the invincible distance, increasing with the years, which stretched between himself and his contemporaries. And of course in Eric's case, in Alabama, his increasing isolation and strangeness were held, even by himself, to be due to the extremely unpopularity of his racial attitudes, or rather, as far as the world in which he moved was concerned, the lack of any responsible attitudes at all. The town in which Eric lived was celebrated and well-to-do, but it was not very big. As far as Eric was concerned, the South was not very big, certainly, as it turns out, not big enough for him, and he was the only son of a very prominent people, so it was not long before his appearance anywhere caused heads to shake, lips to purse, tongues to stiffen, or else violently venomously to curl around his name, which was also, however, his father's name, and Eric, therefore, encountered very often and very soon the hideous obsequiousness of people who despised him, but who did not dare say so. They had long ago given up saying anything which they really felt, had given it up so long ago that they were now incapable of feeling anything which was not felt by the mob. Now Eric stepped out of the shower, rubbing his body with the enormous rough white towel Eves had placed in the bathroom for him. Eves did not like showers. He preferred long, scalding baths, with newspapers, cigarettes, and whiskey on a chair next to the bathtub, and with Eric nearby to talk to shampoo his hair, and to scrub his back. The thought of oriental opulence, which overtook Eves every time he bathed, caused Eric to smile. He smiled, but he was troubled, too. And as he put on his bathrobe, his body tingled less from the effect of the towel and the toilet water than from his image, abruptly overwhelming, of Eves leaning back in the bathtub, whistling, the wash rag in his hand, a peaceful, abstracted look on his face, and his sex gleaming and bobbing in the soapy water like a limp cylindrical fish. And from his memory, to which his image was somehow the gateway of that moment, nearly 15 years ago, when the blow had inexorably fallen, and his shame and his battle and his exile had begun. He walked in the dining room and poured himself a drink. The bottle was empty, and he dropped it in the wastebasket. He lit a cigarette and sat down in a chair next to a window overlooking the sea. The sun was shining, and the sea was on fire. James Baldwin, Another Country.